Right, so this is a On the Road podcast. I'm here with PJ Lucey in Killarney, Ireland. He is not looking forward to this at all, but
No,
we'll
not
see
one
how
bit.
this goes.
Yeah.
This is Villaincast on the road. Expect more of these going forwards as I can convince gym owners to talk to me.
Convince is a strong word.
Beg. So yeah, we've just done a seminar. You invited me over. We met Wagram last year in Austria for the BJJ Globetrotters camp. But introduce yourself, please. This is SBG Killarney. It's right there in the name.
So my name is PJ Lucey. I'm a black belt under Coach Jon Kavanagh. I'm a black belt about 2 years. Training probably about 15 years. I say loosely training. I'm a school teacher by trade. So I'm not a full-time athlete or full-time coach, but I try to do my best. That's kind of how I started 15 years ago.
So what got you into, just as an introduction, like what got you into jiu-jitsu then?
So I suppose first thing I've been doing martial arts pretty much since I was in my single digits. I started off with traditional martial arts, taekwondo, that kind of stuff, and then I got into grappling. I did judo for about 10 years, and I snapped my ACL when I was doing judo. I think it was like 17, 18 years of age, and I kind of stopped doing the grappling for a while. And then I got back into combat sports then when I was roughly around 22, 23. I started doing Muay Thai kickboxing, and of course in the clinch, the judo started coming through. And a buddy of mine, he wasn't my buddy at the time. He thought I was an arrogant prick when we first started off, but we eventually became buddies. He was training as well with us, and I ended up meeting him, just doing a bit of grappling, and I was missing the grappling. I loved the grappling, but I didn't really want to ruin my knee again. So I ended up seeing this jiu-jitsu stuff. So I was like, oh, it's on the ground. It can't be too bad for the knees. So we kind of started, YouTubing stuff, meeting up every Tuesday and Thursday in a local gym. We kind of just threw in our €5 and we got the gym mat for an hour, and with just the two of us kind of experimented for a while. And then suddenly some gym rats poked in their head, saw us, and they're like, can we join you? And then suddenly there was 2, and then there was 4, and then there was 5, and then there was 6. And that's kind of how it started. And there was roughly about 6 or 7 of us in the mat at one stage, and then we got serious when we ended up having a Polish national level wrestler walked in one day and said, who's the coach? Those guys.
We've all had those at some point.
He goes, who's the coach? And there was no coach. We were just kind of fucking around. And then he turned around and said, okay, who's the best guy? And all the guys looked at me. And I wasn't really the best guy. I was just a good athlete. I wasn't necessarily a good jiu-jitsu guy. I was just a good athlete. So I was fast and strong for my size. So he was like, okay, let's go. And I was a small man with an ego. I was late 20s, still thought I was the man. And I was like, let's go. So he ragdolled me for about 40 minutes. And then I caught him in a guillotine in the last 40 minutes, and he tapped. And he got up and he said, good, I will be around next week. And he came in and he brought in a couple of his buddies, and that's kind of how we started. And everything was just YouTube, trial and error. We were like that for maybe about a year and a half. And the lads started looking to me to kind of orchestrate the training sessions. And I did my best as I could. So I was YouTubing. And I would try to hit it in sparring rounds. And if it didn't work, I wouldn't teach it. And then if I could hit it consistently in sparring, then I felt comfortable to teach it. Then that's kind of how we operated for a while. So that was it. And one of the lads, Maresh, good solid Polish guy as well, said, oh, we should fight in a tournament. And we ended up, there was not a whole lot of tournaments in Ireland at that stage. There was a tournament called Grab and Pull, terrible name. Four of us, you remember that?
I remember Grab and Pull.
Yeah, early days. So we traveled over to England 4 of us went over not knowing the rule set, not knowing anything. And this is the time when you kind of just showed up and they put your name on paper on the wall. Yeah. And your weights were like, you get away with weights. And the 4 of us went over. And I think we ended up in the intermediate bracket because Maresh didn't have really good English. Mm-hmm. So he saw inter and he thought it was introduction, and he registered us all for intermediate. That was kind of how we kind of got into it a little bit more serious after that then, yeah.
I mean, those early days where you had, I remember you'd rock up and they go, what weight are you? And then you just say, okay, we'll put you in this division then. You don't have that these days.
No.
Oh God,
you can't get away with that now.
I think it would stress some competition organisers the fuck out if they tried to do that these days.
Yeah.
Let's have random people rocking up and saying, "Yeah, I'm this weight." Like, oh, I've got loads of 80 kilos and nothing else. And even then, like the weight disparities was like, and there was one the UMA where it was like under 85, under 75, under 65, like over 85, over 95, and that was it. And you think that's a 10 kilo difference.
Yeah.
Especially like percentage wise. The difference between a 66 kilo and a 74 kilo, that's a dumb way of doing it. But I guess you just didn't have the people back then. I mean, this is like, I have to pardon my geography sometimes. And this is my first proper trip to Ireland where I've gone outside.
Real Ireland,
And Killarney, I had to look on a map to see where it was. I can't imagine there was much jiu-jitsu down here when you started.
It was nothing really. Like where we're from, Kerry. Kerry is, it's the king for GA football. So it's Gaelic football. It's a religion here. It's run by the parish. So it's a big deal. And to get anybody outside, any good athletes to get out of the football scene and into something like this is extremely hard anyway. Let alone like having somebody who's kind of like a full-time coach down here, that wasn't heard of. Like when I started back in 2010, there was one black belt in the whole country. And that was Jon Kavanagh. And now obviously we've got a good plethora of black belts, but like there was nobody really doing it massively here. We did have MMA in a kind of in its infancy. There was a guy called Tom McGuire. Like Tom is kind of the old stock OGs of the MMA scene. Like he was like, I think there's videos of him training with Lyoto Vegeta in Black House back in the day. Tom was kind of floating in and around Killarney, but he was doing his own thing. He was traveling all around, and he'd come back and he'd do a little bit of a workshop here or do a little class here and stuff like that. But because he was kind of doing his own thing, it was very hard to get anything established in Killarney. So I would try and train with him anytime he was around, and he's phenomenal. Like he's this quiet, stoic, John Wayne, the quiet man. He's that type of guy, he's like under the radar, doesn't promote himself at all. But I would have done a little bit of training with him. But as I said, he did his own stuff, and I wanted a bit more consistency. So as I said, a couple of us came together, rented a gym hall for a while. There was a few mats in there, and that's kind of how we started. But now, like it's taken on. We have now from the Kerry region, I think we've got like 5 black belts.
Really?
In the Kerry region now, we had Micheál Prendergast just got his black belt off Pedro Bessa there over the weekend. So shout out to him. So he's the 5th one from Kerry, which is phenomenal. From only having 1 in Ireland to having 5 in Kerry, which again our population is roughly about 13,000-14,000. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, it still boggles my mind. I mean, the only person near to me when I was starting was really Braulio. I think Neil Simkin may have just got his black belt, but it was just Braulio. And if you weren't in Baja, you weren't learning anything. I mean, you had Carl Tanswell up in Manchester, but it was kind of empty. And that's, I think, one of the things that these days is that people kind of panic the idea of starting their own gym and trying to learn the way we did. Unless you're underneath a black belt in some way that you think, I can't start a gym, I need to go find a local gym. But if you're in the arsehole of nowhere still, there's nothing wrong with, like I said, just get a few people together and be honest. Like there's enough information out there that you can easily start picking things up and just rolling. And fuck about and find out for long enough, you'll figure it out. And we were all fine. We made it.
we got to the other side, Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it took us a bit longer than some people these days. I mean, having a black belt above you does help, but there's no reason you can't. So you're under Jon Kav over a bit further north than here. When did you start going up and meeting him? What was that kind of transition?
So just after that grab and pull tournament, we ended up 4 of us going in there, and as I said, we didn't really know the rule sets all that well, and Maresh's line was just fucking choke them out. That was it. That you win if you make them tap. So we were 4 of us went. We ended up with 3 gold and a silver. So we were delighted with ourselves. So we came back, and I kind of was like, okay, we're actually not bad at this. So I typed in BJJ Ireland, and Jon Kavanagh's name came up. And I had come back after the flight, wrecked tired, had a couple of lemonades, And I think it was like 12 o'clock at night. I saw an email at the bottom, and I was like, I just cheekily sent an email going, "Hi John, my name's PJ Lucey. I'm training down here in Killarney. We don't know what we're doing. Is there any books you'd recommend or DVDs we should be, buying and stuff like that, just to try and help our progression?" And that was fine. Didn't think any of it. And then I think it was like the following day, midday, "Hey PJ, clear your schedule. I'll be down in 2 weeks."
That's crazy.
That was yeah. And I actually genuinely didn't know who Jon Kavanagh was. He was just the first black belt, and I just took a chance. And it's just funny because, like, if I didn't, I don't know, would I be a black belt now? I don't know if I would have had that guidance. So 2 weeks later, he got off the train. There was probably 500 people getting off the train. I genuinely didn't really know what he looked like. I kind of had a picture of him, but then I was like looking. I just saw the hand going up like this. I was like, okay.
The awkward shackles.
The shackles there, yeah. So that was it. And then John came and he did a workshop with the guys. I brought a couple of fellas from other gyms from Cork and Kerry and stuff like that. And I think there was about 18 of us maybe at the workshop, and he did a workshop with us. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then he said, if you're ever up in Dublin, and of course I was up in Dublin the following month, and I was up in Dublin the following month and the following month, and then he come down maybe 4 times the following year. He came down to it 3 or 4 times. And then he said, he offered me, there was an SBG camp in Copenhagen. And he said, why not come over? There's a competition on there as well. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. And that's kind of where we kind of made our association. I got my blue belt there with him. I didn't expect to be going. I was pretty much no gi for the most part. But I had a judo background, so I was used to wearing a gi. Yeah. And then, so I remember, I think I was saying it to you the last day, like towards the end of the camp, there was 2 whiteboards, and he was like, those of you who are competing in the competition, put your name on this board. Those of you coaches are putting you forward for grading, go on this board. So I went over to the competition, put my name down, and he walked over and he just rubbed it out. I was like, what's this? And he goes, I'm putting you forward for the grading. But I came for the competition. He was like, no. He said, it's unfair for you to go in as a white belt. Let's see how you do against the lads for the grading. So I ended up, there was 25 going for the grading, and 2 of us got it, and I was one of them.
So that would have been the old CSA.
Yeah, Christian's place. Yeah.
Which again, it feels hilarious at times that we were almost destined to always come across each other. Like you're tying into SBG and going to CSA years ago, and I must have gone literally maybe the following year or 2 years later, because I think it was a new CSA. Obviously, Christian was still there before Globetrotters really took off and before he disappeared off to the Caribbean. And it's the fact that you said that this is where you came across Preet, of all people. The happy Estonian, who I am obviously under. I mean, you said you used to go to Estonia as well for the SBG camps.
Yeah, I ended up in Tallinn with Preet, and there was 4 of us over there, and I think I had my blue belt at that stage. So I was I got the blue belt in Copenhagen, and then I think the Europeans was on after that, and then a couple of months after that there was the Tallinn camp. So I ended up in Tallinn with 3 of the lads, and there was this, what I was told, funny Estonian, but by Irish standards, I'm not too sure, but very stoic guy. And I ended up over there, and I'd been rolling a lot with a lot of gyms at that stage. I'd probably about 2 years under me at that stage, so I kind of thought I kind of knew a good bit about jiu-jitsu at this stage, 2 years in. And then I went over there, and nobody was rolling right as far as I was concerned. Everything was just off or wrong, and I was never content and happy with rolling with them. It was just a very, very different system. And every roll I felt off, which kind of infuriated me, but also intrigued me. And then I got talking to Preet quite a bit, and I was like, I got to get this guy over to Killarney. So I've probably done maybe about 8 sessions or 8 workshops with Preet, and I've probably hosted him maybe 2 or 3 times myself. And so I suppose that kind of interconnective it was always going to happen.
It was always going to happen. So looking at your history, then you were very much a scrappy dog athlete kind of way of approaching jiu-jitsu. You weren't really into the coaching, but how long have you been a school teacher for now?
Teaching 17 years. Yeah.
So that came in just before your jiu-jitsu then, essentially.
Well, I was still kind of doing like the Muay Thai kickboxing and that kind of stuff. But the pure jiu-jitsu, kind of came in maybe 2 years later. I was starting to kind of get into MMA a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And I got my full-time contract as a teacher roughly 2 years into teaching. And I was going in like parent-teacher meetings with like cuts down the side of my face, ears out to here, my teeth smashed, my nose broken. It wasn't a good look for teaching. So like, parents coming up to me at parent-teacher meetings going, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
Like, do you need to talk to it? Do we need to bring somebody? So I kind of,
I'm a fighter. You're obviously not very good.
Blocking with my face.
That old method.
So I was kind of getting strange looks my first couple of years inside the school. Now they don't bat an eye. Like the kids don't bat an eye, the teachers don't bat an eye. I'd be coming in with like stitches and so they don't bat an eye. But I kind of pure jiu-jitsu. I suppose when I did get my blue belts, Jon kind of took me aside and he says, "I'm going to give you your blue. You don't technically deserve it, but I'm going to give it to you." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." And he kind of said to me, he said, "Nobody could keep up with you. Nobody, you were just fast, strong, agile, aggressive. So the guys couldn't keep up with you. But technically, you were not great."
Yeah.
And I kind of took that to heart because I suppose the first 2 or 3 years, I just tried to train hard. I was only training for myself. I wasn't training to teach anybody else. I was just training for myself, competing quite a bit. And so I was in good shape. And I thought that was enough for jiu-jitsu. But obviously then when Jon kind of took me aside and he kind of, I think it was roughly around that mark, he goes, "When's the last time you tapped?" And I proudly said, "I've never tapped." And then he said, "And you're leading a group of guys in Killarney?" And I said, like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Well, good fighter, shit coach." Yeah. That kind of dawned on me then that I kind of need to kind of expand on what it means to be a coach. So I kind of changed the way I came into the kind of jiu-jitsu environment. So that's kind of what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, because you obviously came through in a way that you weren't maybe subjected to the usual BJJ coaching methods of the time, like the usual warm-up, 3 techniques and a soda. And you obviously have an actual teaching background compared to the vast majority of us who are just winging it at this point.
I'm still winging it as a school teacher too. I'm 17 years winging it. So it's working.
What did you find then that actually helped you the most with transitioning into teaching jiu-jitsu, like that you'd already learned from school life?
Well, I've got every range in the class. I like a high academic, and I've got kids who are struggling, stuff like that, and I've got everything in between. And it's the same as on the mat. Like we talk about different methodologies to hit as many nails on the head in a classroom environment, and it just kind of translated very, very well into a classroom or into a mat environment as well. Because we've got like outstanding athletes in our gym, like every other gym, but we've got people who might never have, gotten off the couch and then suddenly coming into this environment. So like it was all trial and error. And I will say this: we had a very tough first 5 years. We weren't kind of a club in the sense that like we had a hierarchy, everybody belonged to. It wasn't kind of that. We were all coming in. I kind of led it, but we were all learning off each other. So I don't use the phrase students, and I still don't. I'm a black belt and I have white belts in my gym, to brown belts and black belts as well in my gym. They're not my students. They're my teammates, because I genuinely couldn't have gotten to where I am without them. So like calling them a student seems like a cop-out. So like when I'm teaching in my school, I kind of have to keep that in mind, that like they need to learn from each other as well in my classroom environment. So there's a lot of like talks about like restorative practice and reflective in a classroom environment that needs to be brought into the mat environment as well. So we kind of preach that a lot in here. So like you talking about debrief and communication after what's working, what's not working, what do I need to change or adjust. So you do that in a classroom. You have to like I've got different curriculums for different kids, rather than them just sitting there looking at like a screen and they're just nodding. You kind of have to tailor it for them as well. So that's kind of what we tried to do. But the first 5 years I fought it. I'd be honest. It was just a tough environment. It was kill or be killed in here, because I thought that was the only way. But as I got better at teaching in the classroom, I kind of started applying that approach as well in the mats here as well. So it kind of seems to be doing okay.
I think that was, I mean, it all sounds very similar to how it was when I was starting, but also how it was by and large all over the place, because I think the UFC was very much becoming more relevant and prevalent. We were all watching it, we were all young guns. And it was those early days of the kind of tough boom era, like the transition into actually decent athletes, when you just had tough nuts everywhere. Like
who could take a punch?
Exactly. You had, we were the era of Wanderlei Silva, Chuck Liddell.
Haymaker guys.
Exactly. People who just slug each other and just hope for the best. And that was, I think, maybe fed into our understanding. I mean, we had early VHS copies onto YouTube where it was Frank Shamrock or Baz Rutten, and you weren't going to learn much in the way of decent coaching technique and everything from watching that. It was just, I need to be tougher. And we were all the same way. It was, we talked earlier, and those first few years when I was coaching, it was a sense of, right, well, if you could survive, you're probably going to stay. If you get hurt, you're probably staying for you. And now it's, I mean, the whole conversation about ecological approach as well is, I hate the idea of brute forcing just one methodology to teach. Like you said, there's high academics, there's people who struggle. The same in the gym, there's people who are going to learn more through active learning, but then you can try and brute force that on someone else, and then they're just not going to get it. You just have to handhold them a little bit more. And that's fine. You can't then just go, well, you're not getting it this method, and like, fuck you. Like, no,
goodbye.
And that's why, I adopted that mantra of a coach is someone who gets someone where they want to be when they cannot get there themselves. And it's your job
vehicle.
Find their way there, help them get there, whatever means necessary. And it's broaden your horizons to do that. It sounds like you had a bit more of a violent transition then from being an athlete to that being a coach. And it's almost like...
Oh, I fought it.
I
genuinely fought it tooth and nail. Like
it's a completely different language.
Yeah, I suppose I kind of, because I was very, very competitive, and I'm not a particularly big guy, and I was in my 20s when I started this. I still have an ego. I'm not taking that just because I'm a black belt. I've still got an ego. But the reality of it is, I just wanted to decimate everybody that was on the mat, and it was a poor environment for the first maybe 4 years, I would say, and then kind of we started changing it, and we've had fellas who came in and who mightn't have been the most athletic, and we would have probably killed them and nailed them. They never came back. But they could have potentially have gotten it, but I never gave them that opportunity. And that kind of irks me even still, that, we were just a tough dozen guys in Killarney training. Not necessarily doing jiu-jitsu. We were just fighters. That fight mentality was in us, and we were just dogs. But it irks me when I think back of all the people that kind of come through our door looking to be a vehicle for whatever it would have been, whatever their goal is, or the destination mightn't have been matching up at mine, but because I was only set my one destination, I forgot about everything else, and those people now are gone from us. Now a few of them have come back and they've like, oh wow, this place has changed. We feel like we're being valued, or we feel like we actually can achieve what we want to. It might be the same as you, and you, but we're still getting a value from what's happening on the mat. Yeah.
I mean, I think, the mantra of jiu-jitsu is for everyone. You can teach jiu-jitsu to anyone-ish. But at the same time, you've got to have a level of toughness to you.
Resilience, I think.
Resilience.
Yeah.
And it's making sure that you just don't break that initially. Like when someone comes in you have to have some resilience to survive this.
Resilience. You don't have to have it born. You're not born with it. It's something that can be kind of built over time. But if you smash it early on.
Then all those people we've lost over the years just because we were young, dumb, and angry, I guess. And this is one of the interesting things now is because when we started talking last year in Heidelberg, I was like, well, do you want to come out and do some seminars? You're like, well, I'm not, I'm a school teacher. I'm like, if anything, that would make you better doing seminars than majority of people who do seminars, because you can actually teach jiu-jitsu. Which kind of makes me laugh, because that's why I asked her. I was like, do I come out and do something? Like, you're a teacher. No, I'm just a school. Yeah, exactly. But you started now doing some. You've done the camps, and you were asked to be a coach at the Globetrotters camps.
Let's go.
How did you find doing that for the first time in front of hundreds of people.
The videos up on YouTube.
Did you? How badly were you shitting your pants?
I was okay until the moment I said my first word. I was pretty cool. I was like, okay, I know I have my structure in my head. I have my scheme. This amount of time spent. So I had that, and that gave me a little bit of comfort. And then the cameraman came in. I was like, oh, what? It's being videotaped.
Yeah.
Now I think I probably would have shit myself anyway without the videotape when I started. But I even cringe at the opening line that I did, and it's still there. You can watch it.
God.
And I was cringing when I watch it now. But yeah, I was sweating buckets. And it's visible. I think you can see me matted here and like I'm just demoing techniques. So it was just internals, nerves and anxiety. But
was that Wagrain first one?
So I went to Iceland as a normal punter, and then I got invited, and again just didn't feel the imposter syndrome. Like I had it as a black belt when I got my first black belt, and I was still kind of uncomfortable with the belt around me. But then that was heightened by the fact that now suddenly I'm an instructor on the Globetrotters thing, and I felt that imposter syndrome kind of creeping in all the time because there was other instructors sitting there watching me as well.
I
was like, and you know what? And when I did my bit and the camera was off me, I'd literally beelined it to one of the instructors and go, "Is that okay?"
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And I had that kind of like, I get that stern nod from Preet, or I think it was Alexander Newfang was there, and he went. I was like, okay, all right, keep going.
I remember the first time I was ever asked, I just got my brown belt from Christian, and he said, would you welcome to do a class in Heidelberg? And I was like, well, I'd started obviously Globetrotters as a white belt, and I got all my belts through Globetrotters, and then got my brown belt at Copenhagen 2017. He said, do you want to do the Heidelberg class? Like a month later, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like I've been teaching jiu-jitsu now for the best part of 7 years, and here I am just shitting myself. And you've got all these black belts watching you, see what you're doing, and there's Wagrain's a smaller camp.
Yeah, it was a nice opener, but still.
But Heidelberg, there was a good 150 people there. I was like, the fuck am I doing? And I even now I think back to what I did, and I panicked and was just showing random shit eventually. I was like, I kind of like mistimed it. I started just showing random, like, oh, you can do this as well, and then just move on to something else. And I was like, oh, I need to work on that craft. Now luckily, like it's been 7 years of doing those camps, and I'm feeling a bit more.
Yeah, you're doing all right.
Comfortable in it, and doing lots of seminars. But especially like when you know the room and you know your students or your teammates or the people around you, you know their weaknesses, and you know you need to help this person more or etc. When you're trying to give random people who don't know their skill level, and you're trying to teach them something, and especially when you care about it. I mean, when Globetrotters we do for free. Well, I do.
I do too. Don't worry.
You suddenly find out everyone else gets paid and we don't.
Hush, hush.
Exactly. Being able to go into that, and but all these other people are paying, and you think they're here because they want to learn jiu-jitsu for a week.
There's a bit of weight to that too. Yeah.
And same with kind of any seminar, and you want to deliver, and you want to make sure they walk away with something like you don't want to
value for money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anyone can show just a technique or three, but being able to have it so people walk out and they go, I learned something from that, and we care about it. We care about teaching.
Yeah, if I get a a small little reply afterwards on a message, Instagram or something like that, like, oh my God, I'm going to frame this. It's like one line. That was a good class. Really, really appreciate it. Oh, that helped me with this, and I'm like, yes, it's working.
Thank you. And but when you don't know those people and you're trying to, and there's skill levels from, there's people go to camps and have done like 3 weeks of jiu-jitsu, then you've got black belts on the other side, done like 15, 20
national
years.
European champions and stuff like that.
How do I deliver to such a breadth of people? And there's hundreds, and we can't get around everyone. And you're just like, right, well, this is where I have to find the craft.
What's the biggest number you've had in front of you?
About 250.
I'm not there yet. I think my biggest is like 90, I think, so far.
Yeah, 250 was a bit.
Yeah.
We all lined up afterwards, and I was like, fuck, that's a lot of people. I was like, oh, what the hell just
shaking
happened?
all their hands, knowing
Yeah.
by their name.
You know when you had the little lineup and you all like shake your hands afterwards, you could have been there for the next hour just going around everyone.
Got to switch hands.
There's like over 1,000 handshakes going on. I mean, that's going to be the thing now because you entered into the Globetrotter scene, you entered into the camp scene. We did Munich together back in October, the Artemis camp. And now you're going to be going and just doing actual seminars in places. I've seen you in Switzerland, I think it is.
Yeah. Basel MMA and Newgard invited me over, yeah.
And then it's going to be transatlantic at some point.
Yeah,
May, June, transatlantic.
Yeah, that's going to be nuts.
We're going to have a bit of a tour. So if anyone's listening from America, we're going to come visit. Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about taking that craft on the road and
okay,
that transition?
My kids are in their teens now, so I like they're not all grown up, but they're pretty close to it. So I have that little bit more freedom, and I probably would like to have taken those opportunities when I was younger, like everybody else. But I have those opportunities now, so I kind of you're forcing me out of my comfort zone. I will say this.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it because like the Globetrotters thing was such a massive eye opener to me. So I've 3 Globetrotters camps this year. I've done 1, so I have 2 left. But I've already got maybe after the Globetrotters, I've got maybe 10 more foreign camps, nothing to do with inside of Ireland, which is phenomenal. But the American camp, I've never been to America, so it's kind of everything is going to be new and it is daunting. And we talked a little bit about like you're going to do the first hour and a half, an hour. I'll do this.
I'm the opening act.
Yeah, you're the opening act.
You're the main attraction.
Yeah. Starter, main course. We all know who Batman is in a way, but anyway, yeah. But yeah, I'm loving the opportunity, and I am going to grab it with both hands, and I am starting to get a little bit more comfortable in that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more comfort needed, I suppose, to make it into something that I would be at ease with, I suppose.
I mean, we talked about the idea of like, you have to kind of pinch yourself sometimes because we both started off in a desert of jiu-jitsu where there was nothing around us and we had to go traveling to kind of get anything. Black belts were legends that you just never saw.
Pedestal stuff.
Exactly. And then going from, when we both worked onto the mats, neither of us had any idea where this could go. We just wanted to be violent with other people. I get that exact same feeling that sitting in Wagrain or sitting in the back end of Beyond, and you're just like, how the fuck did I end up here? And like, it was one of the quotes from Christian back in 2013 camp where he said that jiu-jitsu is one of the best vehicles to see in the world. I think if you can, especially at black, every belt, definitely. There's nothing more kind of inviting than a jiu-jitsu school sometimes. Sometimes they're going to be a bit off. Like there's certain affiliations that aren't as welcoming, shall we say.
Yeah, or there's constraints on
who can go where.
Showing up on their mats and stuff.
But vast majority of jiu-jitsu people will let you in. They just want to show you their town. They want to show you their area. I mean,
proud hosts.
Yeah, you very kindly showed me around Kalani. I'm like, this is so beautiful. I'm definitely coming back here just on holiday. And you have to then think that we were just scrappy kids, just wanted to hurt each other, and now we're about to go play in America. You're like, that imposter syndrome definitely comes through because we never got big on the competition scene. We had some success, and we kind of know what we're talking about sometimes in jiu-jitsu, but it still boggles my mind. Still boggles my mind that I'm sitting here in Kalani talking with yourself that we would have never met in any lifetime, and we're recording a freaking podcast that actually gets listened to, and I'm like, how the hell did we end up here?
And all sharing the room in Heidelberg. That's kind of really where it kind of kicked off.
Yeah, exactly. We talked a little bit in Wagrain, but then Heidelberg, Christian sorting out the hostel for us all, and we're just talking.
Genius, I think, with that room plan.
Yeah, rolling with each other and having a great time. I had a great time. You look kind of angry at the end of it.
Yeah. Puzzle maker and puzzle. I do like a good puzzle, but I kind of maybe sometimes I'm 43, but 43 going on toddler. I kind of want my puzzle fixed sooner rather than later. So yeah.
And if anything, if this conversation had to have like a topic, I guess it's that kind of, even if you're when I say scrappy dog in the middle of nowhere, There's definitely, don't lose hope in jiu-jitsu. It's a fun sport, and don't get me wrong, it's not, a lot of people hang their lives on it kind of thing, and think it solves all of the life's problems. That's just a really fun sport. But if you can find a way of twisting it into this kind of travel vehicle, it's opened so many insane doors. It's much wider than your own gym, and you can go in such fantastical places. And the simple idea that is, I think it's the second or third country that listens to this the most is Australia, which is nuts. There's people in Australia going to be hearing of you for the first time, and you think, the fuck, like why?
Yeah, other side of the world.
And I was just scrappy for kids from Killarney. Boggles my mind. But I said May time we'll go out into the States, and we'll have to do almost like a behind the scenes footage of this kind of
road
tour.
trip kind of stuff.
Yeah. We'll record it.
The boys on tour.
So you can PJ's first taste of America. You can see how it treats him. I'll, if there isn't a videographer, I'll record your class in Maine, and I'll upload it as well. But yeah, I'm really glad we met, and I'm really excited to see.
Look, I as you were talking about pinching yourself, I've from a couple of guys messing around paying €5 for mat space for an hour to now suddenly traveling to America. Like you said, it did never dawned on me. And as I said, I just wanted to compete in the early days, and now suddenly the competition scene hasn't got as much of a draw as the traveling, seeing the world scene. For me, and now each their own, and that's fine.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I just it's cool. Bring on 2024 and see what happens after that. Though.
I mean, there's a brilliant documentary, I don't know if you've seen it, called Roll Jiu-Jitsu in SoCal. It came out about 2014, 2015. Really good guy who did it from Sheffield. I think he was living in London at the time, but it was at the first Globetrotters camps. And there's a beginning quote from the man on the wall there, Chris Halter, where he says, "Not who's good, it's who's left." And it's like one of the most optimistic and positive people in jiu-jitsu. You have yourself, where if you just stick around long enough and you just enjoy the sport and don't get sucked into the nightmarish politics and bullshit that gyms can kind of attract. And we both felt it, and we could have been easily spoilt on this sport. But
there was definitely times where I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I trying to keep this place open? Why am I trying to recover after?
Yeah, when you're broken and there's only 3 of you on the match, you think, what the fuck are we doing this for? This is dumb. Yeah. But you just hang around long enough and enjoy the game and remain positive, you end up doing dumb shit like this.
And then you're off to America.
You're off to America. And further afield, Japan and the Far East, hopefully by the end of the year, that's even more insane. No, thank you for hanging around after the seminar and having a little chat with me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks very much.
And you thought this wasn't going to go anywhere.
I'm not that interesting, so I was like, why?
Oh, completely. We managed to...
we filled the hour, or close to the hour anyway.
No, absolute pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks, Chris.